Before we continue with our service, we want to pause and say a huge good morning to the virtual members of Columbine United Church. Those of you who join us from literally across the United States, some of you even around the world, it is great to have you here today. We know that you come here every Sunday to join us, not because you're looking for something to do, but because you find meaning and hope here. You know, we change the way people see God. We want people to see that God is a benevolent, wonderful, loving presence that includes all people here and around the world. So as always, we want you to do more than just watch this movie. We want you to like it. We want you to post it on your Facebook page. We want you to Twitter it out. We want you to send it to somebody who you know needs to hear this message. It is great to have you here. Let us give them a warm Columbine welcome, everybody. Our scripture passage this morning comes from Matthew's Gospel, the 8th chapter, verses 1 through 4. Listen for God's word as it comes to us today. Jesus came down the mountain with the cheers of the crowd still ringing in his ears. So he's just got done preaching the Sermon on the Mount. He just came down from the mountain with the cheers of the crowd still ringing in his ears. Then a leper appeared and went to his knees before Jesus, praying, "Master, if you want to, you can heal my body." Jesus reached out and touched him, saying, "I want to be clean." Then and there, all signs of the leprosy were gone. Jesus said, "Don't talk about this all over town. Just quietly present your healed body to the priest, along with the appropriate expressions of thanks to God. Your cleansed and grateful life, not your words, will bear witness to what I have done." And here the passage ends. May God bless these words as we seek to apply them to our lives. It's called "When You Least Expect It, Someone Sneezes." Before I go in, I just want to say thank you to all of you. If you guys were here last Sunday, you heard one of the most amazing presentations of music. Mitch, I've been singing that music all week, and once again, I want to give you a thank you, applause. If you missed it, we're going to be doing it again in January, February. I also want to say thank goodness it's Halloween. Because when I saw John this morning, I went, "Oh no, Hausman's really gone off the edge." And then I went, "Oh, Mr. Clean, Halloween, oh, thank you, Jesus." Because when I saw that big hoop earring, I went, "Oh, Lord." All right, very good. Woo, thank goodness, Halloween. So, I was in the grocery store the other day, in their produce aisle, and somebody sneezed. They didn't cover their mouth. But immediately, 4 people said, "God bless you, God bless you, God bless you, God bless you." And I started thinking, why do we say that? Why do we say God bless you? When you don't cover your mouth, God bless you. We should be saying, "Hey, stop it. Cover your mouth." You know, but God bless you. Why do we say God bless you? Well, you know, I started looking it up. We say God bless you because, you know, some people believe that, you know, that when you sneeze, your heart stops. And they say God bless you kind of to cover your bases in case, you know, your heart stops in. You know, there's an old Irish legend that says, you know, that when you sneeze, your soul escapes. And so, you know, that when you say God bless you, it's a way of kind of putting a cork in that. Stay in there, soul, you know. But actually, it goes all the way back. The research that I could find was it goes back to Pope Gregory I in 1590 and the Black Plague, the Black Death, the bubonic plague. When the plague was going down, burning its way through Italy, and it was literally burning its way, burning through people like they were standing dead timber. Depending upon the town and the population, it was killing between 30% and 50% of the population. People were terrified of the plague. And there's some amazing art that depicts the terror that people had. Pope Gregory had people going through the city squares of Rome as it was coming down and approaching Rome. He had people walking through the streets, praying, they were chanting, they were swinging incense, doing anything they can to stop the plague from coming through, because they believed, they had no idea what was passing the plague, but they believed that it was being passed through sneezing. And so as a way, when someone sneezed, the statement was, "God bless you," as a way of saying, "God bless you because more likely you're going to die." And God bless you because I really don't want it. I really don't want it. So, it kind of got me thinking, about, what if Ebola broke out? What if Ebola broke out? All over our society. And somebody was in the produce aisle. And they sneezed without covering in their mouth. When we say, God bless you, we say, hey, God, stop it! Cover your mouth! What are you doing? Ebola. Boy, there is nothing that puts the fear of God in somebody and the fear of death in somebody than the phrase Ebola. When I told Justin I was going to preach on Ebola this Sunday, he said, you are not. I said, I am. He goes, you're kidding me. You're going to terrify everybody. They're going to think you have some kind of weird vision, and you're going to be prophesying. No, I am not. And then the more he tried to talk me out of it, the more my eyes kind of and he goes, you're really going to do this, aren't you? I said, yep. Yep. I'm going to do it. Because just when we least expected, this when we thought everything was going good with the world, the global economy was picking up, here comes the pandemic. When we least expected. When we least expected. Yes, I just love this slide. Put this together. This has been our fall sermon series, all fall. That God works in such ways when we least expect it. Because we like our lives to be ordered. We like to put things on our day timer, and we like things to go just this way. We don't like surprises. God don't surprise us unless it's a lottery ticket. Don't surprise us. Don't surprise us. But that's not the way God works. God looks at our day timers and says, "I don't care. I laugh." And that we have to be open, we have to be willing to change and move in the different ways that God moves in the midst of our own lives. And what's been powerful for Justin, Joe, and I, and many of you in the congregation, is that many of you have gone through some of these things that you thought life was going wrong, you thought life was going right, and you went to the doctor and you thought life was going all right, and then a car runs a red light. And when you least expect it, your life goes, and you have to decide, how are you going to change? How are you going to respond? And you need to know that through everything that happens, there is God. Especially when Ebola breaks out. Now let me be clear, I really don't want to frighten you. I have not had some weird vision from God to tell me to preach on Ebola. In fact, when I told God I was going to preach on Ebola, I felt more of this, don't freak the people out. For me, there's a powerful lesson from Ebola that I want to raise up. And maybe since it's going out on YouTube, it could be in the archive somewhere, so that if something does weird happen, you can kind of pull this out and paste it and say, hey, here's the message about how we should respond. And the very first thing I want to say is that this disease is not some punishment upon us by God for, name it, that we have allowed gay and lesbian people to be married. Because someone's going to say that. Do I need to say this to you? No, of course not. But it's you. But the rest of you, I do need to tell you this. Because some crazy preacher is going to say, see, I told you this is God's punishment. No, it's not God's punishment. No, it is not God's punishment. God does not work that way. And if you ever hear that, you need to confront it heads up. God does not work that way. So now that I have that out of the way, let's talk about what is the lesson. And here's the lesson. Here's first of all my question. Why are we so terrified of this disease? Why does this fill us with so much anxiety? I just got back from Italy. A group of us, there's 30 of us that were over in Italy. And as we were traveling through Italy, we had heard that the disease had jumped the continent. It was in Spain, and then it was in Dallas, Texas, of all crazy places. We thought, wow, why Dallas, Texas? And when we landed and kind of got our feet back and I started engaging the church and working again, kind of being involved in my own community, it's like, I've heard some of the craziest things. If it comes into my workplace, I'm quitting. I'm stocking up on ammo, man. I got 47,000 rounds. 47,000 rounds, really? Really, 47,000 rounds. Yeah, I've got 22 shells. Like 22 shells that can protect you. 47,000 rounds. My neighbor's a prepper. You know what a prepper is? Preppers they have their own TV show. It's amazing. They're preparing for when it all goes down. You know, and that's their line, when it all goes down. You know, they're stockpiling food, they're stockpiling ammo. And my neighbor came to me and he said, now look at here it is. He says, my kill zone is the corner in front of your house. You laugh. He said, your kill zone is when they're coming down the road. Anybody who goes past your road and you don't get them, I got them. I've been practicing. And I think to myself, Jesus did not have you in mind when he said, love thy neighbor as thyself. He did not have you in mind. You know, and it's like, why? Why are we so afraid? Why are we so afraid? And it made me think about the Black Plague. It made me think about what we learned about the Black Plague when we were over in Italy. Italy, boy, we had an amazing time in Italy. And over the next several weeks, probably months, even years, you'll hear me talk about our trip to Italy. It was a spiritual pilgrimage. This is a great picture, a picture that I took, that is from the tower that is this is Florence. This is a view from Florence. And actually, I want all the lights to be cut. People who are on virtual Columbine, the YouTube, we're going to go dark because I want you don't need to look at me. I want you to see the slides that I'm going to be presenting. So this is called the Duomo in the dome, the big dome of the beautiful cathedral, two of the large cathedrals in Florence. And a group of us, about 7 of us, paid the €10 to climb up on this amazing tower to look across the Duomo and across Florence. And then we went back down the tower, and we actually then got to go into the cathedral and look up at the ceiling that is inside this big, huge dome, the Duomo. And it looks like this. And now, I am not a photographer, so you have to bear with me. I did the best I could. So looking at, first of all, this, the Sistine Chapel. We got to see the Sistine Chapel. How many of you have seen the Sistine Chapel? Oh, wow. Okay, so a lot of you have been there. So, it's about half the size of this sanctuary, the Sistine Chapel. Whereas the Duomo, how many of you have seen the Duomo? Wow, you shall be preaching. All right. It's gargantuan. It's gargantuan. And it's so huge. My first thought is wow, how did they paint this thing? How did they paint this thing? Because it was more, suspended on their backs. And then when you start looking at all the different images, it's the second coming. It's the images of the final judgment, the second coming. And right here in the middle is Jesus, and then you kind of spiral down to right in here is the judgment, and it is filled with some of the most incredible, violent images I have ever seen. There, you can pay your €10, and you can actually go up one of these most claustrophobic stairwells. How many of you have done that? How many of you have gone up the stairwells? That's perfect. I am so claustrophobic. I love heights. Like, that big tower up there, I could sit on the edge of the railing and not feel good. Going up through those stairwells where you crunched over and there's a bunch of people, I deal with my claustrophobia by singing, row, row, row your boat. And so I was going up this, and I met this guy from Cairo behind me. He's going, why you sing row, row, row your boat? I said, don't go there. But what's really cool is you get to go up, and is that you get to walk along this catwalk. First you walk on the outside, and then you walk on the inside. Walk right along this catwalk, and you get to see these frescoes, right up close and personal. And they're right there at you could reach out and touch them. And boy, it's like I wanted to reach out and touch this fresco that was hundreds of years old. And just when I was getting ready to do it, I heard my mother say, Stephen, stop it. But I took some pictures of the Last Judgment because I was amazed. Now, those of you who's squeamish, take a breath, because and I decided, should I do this, should I not? And I decided, well, if it was about the faithful in Florence in the day, that I could put them in front of you, that the faithful in Columbine. So here's some pictures from the Duomo of the Last Judgment. Let your eyes adjust and kind of point it out. First of all, here is one of the big satanic demons, kind of this big bat thing, and it is eating a human being. And then if you go down here, here are other demons. Here are human beings that are being thrown off the cliff by other demons. And over here, more human beings are being thrown off a cliff, and they're being prepared to be tortured. Here's another picture of one of the Satan beings, kind of up close. I decided this looks like Joe before he said his morning Starbucks. And this guy was huge. He was huge. This next slide is pretty kind of graphic, so cover the faces of the kids, and if you don't like graphic images, kind of close your eyes. This is not a joke. I'm preparing you for this slide. This is a very horrific scene. Here is, again, a demon, and he has a torch, and you see where that torch is going. Another demon is doing the same up here to a woman. There are demons over here all around, more people being agonized and terrified by what they're seeing. Here is another demon, kind of an animalish demon who is getting ready to clonk a human being on the head. And you can see other humans kind of here in the background that are being terrified by what they're seeing. Here's a three-headed beast, three-headed kind of dragonish type of thing that is chasing human beings and getting ready to devour them. Here are other beings who are pleading for mercy. And you know, when the group got together, we were asking questions. Gosh, why? What is this? And if you've read Dan Brown's book, Inferno, the guy who wrote the Da Vinci Code, his latest book is called Inferno. It's a great book. It takes place in Florence, and he describes this ceiling, and it has to do with the Black Plague. It has to do with the Black Plague. Again, people were terrified of the Black Plague. What I've read is like a worst-case scenario about Ebola. If Ebola breaks out, like I've heard, like 3 to 7% of the world's population could be infected, possibly killed. Now that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. The plague, again, depending upon the population base, was 30 to 50%. People were terrified. They were fleeing. Families were leaving, abandoning children. Spouses were abandoning each other. Churches were closing their doors. It was horrific. And this guy, Pope Gregory, it was his job to bring a sense of spiritual hope to the people in the midst of their terror. And the best that the church could come up with at the time was this. And Dan Brown depicts that through this huge uptick that the church experienced during the Black Plague was that they couldn't read. These were illiterate peasants who were coming into Florence, into the dwelling of worship. And they couldn't read, but they could sure look up and see what was happening. And the church at the time said, you can buy your way out of this. We'll sell you an indulgence. And if this does happen to you, then we can buy your way up to heaven. And I began to think, now that's the stewardship idea. That's the stewardship. I began writing the sermon today, that I'm preaching today, back in Italy. And the thing that hit me late one night in the hotel when I started typing was the story of Jesus healing the leper. Because leprosy was their Ebola. Leprosy was their plague. They had no idea what caused leprosy. They just know that if you got leprosy, that your life was over. You were now going to suffer a miserable death because different parts of your body were going to start shriveling up and falling away. And so they ostracized the people. They put them off into leper colonies. You've read about this. You've heard about this. They had to go down the road covering their faces, shouting, unclean, unclean, unclean. What that means is not only stay away, but they're saying that really they are unclean, they are polluted, they are not allowed to go into a synagogue, into a temple, into the presence of God. And so Jesus has just come down from the Sermon on the Mount, and the leper says, if you want to, you can make me clean. The key is there, if you want to. That denotes a choice. It's a choice. Jesus, you can choose. You can choose, if you want to make me clean. And Jesus says, I do choose. I want to. And he reaches out, touches the leper, and he's clean. Now the key is, and the passage points it out, is that he has just preached the Sermon on the Mount. He has just preached the Sermon on the Mount. His magnum opus, his summa. If you want to know who Jesus is, what it means to follow Jesus, you read the Sermon on the Mount. In fact, that's what I'm going to be, on Tuesday night, I'm going to be starting the teaching about Christian ethics based upon the Sermon on the Mount. And then Matthew tells a story, because we have to remember that the Gospels are not transcripts of a videotape. You know, someone's not writing down everything that Jesus does. No, Matthew has all these stories in front of him, and he's picking and choosing what he's going to do. He has Jesus coming down from the mountain, and he immediately chooses to put a healing of the leper. It's very important to note that. Because what Matthew is trying to say, it's one thing to talk about the Sermon on the Mount. It's one thing to talk about being faithful. It's another thing to actually do it. It's one thing to talk about Jesus on Sunday morning. It's another thing when it comes to be Wednesday and you're tired. But Wednesday is when the rubber hits the road. And so, you know, what Matthew was saying is that Jesus just didn't talk, is that he went and he touched a leper. No one touched these people. They were terrified of these people. Jesus went and touched someone who had the plague. He went and touched someone who had Ebola. And you read the gospel and you go, oh, that's so cool. It's tender-hearted, it's sweet. Jesus, good for you. Thank you for healing the lepers. Just love that. Good for you, Jesus. Thank you. Until he says this. Oh, huh? What do you mean? Go and do likewise. What do you mean? Like, you want us to go touch? Someone's got leprosy? You want us to touch? Someone's got the plague? No, you want us to touch someone who has Ebola? Yeah, don't you mean we should be stockpiling ammo? 47th, my kill zone is, your kill zone is. Should we all kind of agree with that? Notice there's no place on the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus said stockpile ammo. No, he said, go and do likewise. That's why I want to introduce you to one of my own personal heroes. This is on the woman on your right is Dr. Janelle Ruth. And many of you know Dr. Ruth. Dr. Ruth is the daughter of our own Ron and Josilla Ruth, who are sitting back there. Ready? Put your hands up so everybody can see you. Yay. Janelle is an amazing human being. An amazing human being. She's an MD. She was here several years ago. You met her when she was working in Malawi with kids and families with malaria, right? Trying to prevent malaria. Am I remembering that right? And she was such an inspiring human being. She's a little bitty thing. She's a little bitty thing. She's nothing big. And the reason why I want to introduce you to Janelle because of what she's doing. These pictures were just taken last week. And she is with the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and she is part of the Ebola response team. And when I wanted to preach this, they literally, a group just took these pictures from me and sent them to me, so hot off the press. And these are pictures of Janelle at work. And I want you to point out a few things. Look at your little baby. You know, I don't know, mom, grandma, kids, family. I don't know, it looks like an interpreter of some kind. Village interpreter. Here's Janelle, Dr. Ruth, talking with, looks like, I think it's a couple of nurses, must be a couple of nurses. And one of the things that I noted right away, and when Josilla and I were talking, you notice, look how clean everything is. Look how clean. I don't know if you've all been in third world countries, but boy, the third world countries that I've been in are not like this. In Nicaragua, there'd be garbage and trash everywhere. And here it's just like spotlessly clean. It was amazing. Now, in this picture, I want you to notice Dr. Ruth's hazmat suit. In this picture, I want you to notice her oxygen tank. In this picture, I want you to know how Dr. Ruth is keeping everybody at arm's distance. No, Dr. Ruth is with the people. Dr. Ruth is with the people. And again, if Janelle knew that I was saying some of these things, she'd be hugely embarrassed, because that's not her MO at all. And yet, man, you know, and Josilla just told me she's coming back tomorrow. The CDC is bringing her back tomorrow. I hope I get a chance to sit down with her and talk about her experience. Maybe we can even bring her in here to talk. But, you know, what I love about her is that I just hope someday I can be like her. You know, that if it all goes down, you know, will we be fleeing? Or will we be going and doing likewise? You know, she's been in Malawi, she's been in Haiti, she's now been at ground zero of this disease. She's not afraid. You know, right now, in our society, in our world, there's so much violence. There's so many reasons to pull back, to pull away, to stock up on ammo. And when I was refining the sermon last night, making sure all my last touches, you know, I spent a lot of time looking for just the right images. I kid you not, these two images came up on Google Images side by side. This image and this image. And it just like, I was like, wow. This image, or the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. Gandhi. Almost as if it's a way of saying, choose. Choose this day whom you will serve. I set before you life and death, blessing and curses. Choose life so that it may go well with you. That's from the Hebrew Bible. Choose this day whom you will serve. But for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. That's from the Hebrew Bible. Who do you need to reach out to and touch? Who do you need to reach out to and touch? And maybe the first person you need to touch is the person in the mirror. You know, Pope Francis is the light of the world. He is the hope for humanity. When we had a personal audience with His Holiness, us and 60,000 of our new closest friends. And even though there were 60,000+ of us in the Vatican Square, when he came through, there is electricity. There is electricity in the air. In fact, this one little guy, I'll never forget this little guy. He was in high school. We were crammed in, and it was roasting hot. The sun had rose. It was coming over us. And you know, we were rolling up our sleeves. I had my baseball cap on backwards to protect my neck, and it was hot. And he was in his Sunday best, his suit. He was sweating. And he was like 16, 17, and he was dying to see Pope Francis, and he couldn't see above the crowd. He couldn't get on his chair. I reached up to him, I grabbed him, blew him up. And he said, thank you, thank you. And he was screaming to see the Pope. And the Pope, bless his heart, he drives around his little Pope mobile. I mean, the guy drives, and he tells him to stop. And His Holiness reaches down, and a mother holds up her baby. He reaches down, takes the baby, kisses the baby, blesses the baby. Reaches down, blesses the mother, blesses the father. I get choked up just telling the story. He hands the baby down. They start baby surfing. As everybody wants to touch the baby. Everybody wants to touch the baby. This man is amazing. When we were going through Italy, we're asking, people would say, Americans, have you seen our Pope? Yes. We love our Pope. And when I talk about the hope for the world, people go, yes. And you know what they say to a person? To a person, they say this: he will change the world if somebody doesn't kill him first. Wow. Wow. Who do you need to touch? The man in the mirror? The guy in your block? Good luck. Person in your family? Person at work? You know, everybody has somebody in their life who's like hugging a cactus. There are a lot of people that are like that. Yet even a cactus needs some water. You know, he said very clearly, go and do likewise. Let's pray. God, around the world right now, there's a lot of terror and there's a lot of fear, whether it's Islamic State or Ebola or different diseases. And there's so much that makes us just want to pull inside and close the door and drop the shutters and just hole up until it all passes away. But that's not what you taught us. You gave us the example of your son who went out amidst the people and he touched and he healed and he held them and he wept with them and he laughed with them. And you told us to go and do likewise, and that's why today we are grateful for people like Dr. Ruth and all of the other doctors who are down there, oh God, and we should be praying for Dr. Ruth every single day. We should be praying for all the other physicians from the CDC, from the World Health Organization, and the doctors who were coming from literally Cuba and places all over the world. First thing, our prayers should be down to these folks who are really saying, I'll go. Send me. And we're grateful, O Lord, for their example because it's an inspiration to us to reach out, to go beyond our fears, to let go of the demons and the hatred and the ugly judgment, and to be ambassadors of love and compassion. And that's what we need to be taught: love and compassion. And that's what Jesus tried to teach us when he taught us the prayer of love and compassion. A prayer that we say now together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory.